Jonathan Hale stood before the crumbling library shelves, his fingers brushing the faded spine of a book older than memory. He whispered, "Atlantis hides more than myths, it holds answers buried in silence." Eleanor Price entered, her cautious voice breaking the quiet. Eleanor said, "You are chasing shadows, Jonathan, and shadows consume the mind." His eyes burned with obsession as he replied, "I must find the truth, even if it swallows me." The storm outside rattled the windows, lightning painting the room in fractured light. Isabella Ward, pale and shaken, clutched a fragment of stone etched with strange symbols. She said, "This piece was left by my family. They said it belonged to a city that drowned in fire." Jonathan leaned closer, his breath sharp. "This is the key," he declared, his voice trembling with awe and fear. Eleanor shook her head, warning, "Keys often unlock doors best left sealed." Morning broke with gray skies as Jonathan carried the fragment to his study, map spread across the oak table. He said, "These lines point to coordinates that defy known history." Eleanor entered, her eyes scanning the papers with unease. Eleanor said, "Even if true, you are walking into a labyrinth of lies." Jonathan's voice hardened. "Every myth hides truth beneath its bones, and I will dig until I find it." Eleanor touched the edge of the fragment, her face tense. She whispered, "And if truth consumes you, Jonathan, what remains of you then?" He ignored her warning, tracing routes across oceans with an ink-stained finger. The storm had passed, but the air outside remained heavy, as though the world itself resisted his discovery. The study filled with quiet tension. As Isabella entered, her steps hesitant. She said, "My family warned me of curses tied to that stone." Jonathan looked up sharply. "Curses are inventions of fear. Knowledge is the only danger here." Eleanor's voice cut in, low and firm. "And danger has a way of turning knowledge into graves." Isabella lowered her gaze, clutching her shawl tighter. Jonathan pointed to a section of the map, his voice steady. "Here lies the answer, a place forgotten in time. I cannot turn away now." Eleanor crossed her arms, her jaw tight. "Obsession blinds, Jonathan, and it blinds you faster than you realize." The air thickened between them, a fragile thread stretched thin by belief and dread. Jonathan adjusted his glasses, his voice echoing with determination. Plato's writings were not allegory. They were warnings. Eleanor replied sharply, "Warnings ignored become catastrophes repeated." Isabella shifted uneasily, her voice soft. "My father vanished, searching for these same waters." Jonathan turned his gaze steady on her. "Then his sacrifice will not be in vain. I will succeed where he failed." Eleanor clenched her fists, her voice laced with pain. "Or you will follow him into the abyss." Jonathan rolled the fragment in his palm, its runes glowing faintly under the lamp. He whispered, "The abyss may be the only path to truth." Their silence was thick, each weighed down by the shadows of Atlantis. Later that night, Jonathan stood alone at the harbor, the sea restless beneath a bruised sky. He murmured, "Atlantis waits beyond these waters." Eleanor's voice echoed from behind. "And what if it waits to bury you?" He did not turn, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then let the sea take me, but not before I uncover what was lost." Isabella approached slowly, her voice trembling. "My father said the ocean remembers. It never forgives." Jonathan tightened his grip on the fragment, the salt wind stinging his face. "Forgiveness is not what I seek, only truth." The waves crashed harder, as though answering him. Shadows of ships loomed in the distance, vessels prepared for a journey that might consume them all. The harbor air still clung to Jonathan's coat as he walked into the dim cafe, its corners shadowed in secrecy. He said, "Coordinates alone mean nothing without guidance." Across from him sat Adrian Blackwood, a stranger cloaked in gray, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Adrian's tone was low, measured. "Atlantis is not where maps claim. It lies between truth and silence, and only those willing to sacrifice reach its gates." Eleanor, who had followed reluctantly, frowned. You speak in riddles, like a man who wants us lost. Adrian smirked faintly. Lost is the only path to be found. Jonathan's jaw tightened, his voice steady. Then tell me where to begin. Adrian leaned forward, whispering words that felt like both warning and promise. Begin where fire met water, and civilizations drowned. Jonathan paced his study, Adrian's cryptic words circling his mind like a storm. Eleanor said, "That man twists truth into poison. Don't drink it." Jonathan stopped, his eyes blazing. His words carry weight. Fire met water. Volcanoes, oceans, tectonic scars. History whispers through him. Isabella clutched the stone fragment, her voice fragile. "My father said the same, before the sea took him." Jonathan pressed a finger to the map, his tone resolute. "Then this is the trail he left unfinished. I will walk it to its end." Eleanor crossed her arms, her voice sharp. "And if the end swallows you whole?" Jonathan's eyes narrowed with determination. "Then it means the truth was worth the cost." The air felt charged, as though the house itself held its breath. In the grand hall of the university, Dr. Marcus Kane stood at the podium, his voice commanding. "Atlantis is myth, a tool of allegory. Do not let charlatans fool you." Jonathan watched from the back, fists clenched. Eleanor whispered, "He wants to bury this truth." Jonathan's voice was sharp. "Because he fears it." Kane's gaze swept the audience, landing briefly on Jonathan with a knowing glint. "There are those who would risk lives chasing phantoms, but I remind you, phantoms leave only graves." Jonathan stepped forward, his tone cutting. "And yet graves are built on real bones." Murmurs filled the hall as tension grew thick. Kane smiled coldly, his eyes glimmering with challenge. "Some truths deserve to stay buried, Mr. Hale." The crowd erupted in uneasy whispers. Outside the lecture hall, rain pelted the stone steps. Jonathan caught up to Kane, his voice firm. "Why silence the truth? What are you protecting?" Kane turned, his face calm but eyes fierce. "I protect humanity from drowning in its own greed. Atlantis was not a paradise, but a warning." Eleanor stepped between them, her voice strained. "Then, let the truth warn us now." Kane leaned closer to Jonathan, whispering words meant only for him. "Dig too deep, and you'll awaken what sleeps beneath." Jonathan's heart pounded, his reply sharp. "Better awakened than forgotten." Kane's smile faded into steel. "Then prepare to bury yourself with it." Rain streamed down their faces as their unspoken war deepened. Later that evening, Jonathan sat in his study, the storm outside echoing the storm within. Eleanor paced, her voice urgent. "Kane will crush you. His influence is vast." Jonathan replied, "Influence does not erase truth. I will not yield." Isabella spoke softly, her hands trembling. "If Atlantis is real, it carries curses that killed my father. Will it kill us too?" Jonathan's voice was steady, though his hands clenched. "Curses are tales. What kills is ignorance. I will face what he fears." Eleanor stopped pacing, her eyes burning with both anger and sorrow. "And if facing it destroys you?" Jonathan looked to the fragment glowing faintly on the desk. "Then at least I will be destroyed chasing truth, not hiding from it." The harbor bustled with quiet menace as Jonathan oversaw crates loaded onto a weathered ship. Victor Stone approached, his hand extended, a smile too polished to be trusted. Victor said, "I've studied Atlantis longer than most. Allow me to join your search." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "Why now, when the path grows dangerous?" Victor's grin never faltered. "Because danger is where truth thrives." Eleanor stepped forward, her voice cold. "Strangers with perfect timing usually bring disaster." Victor chuckled softly, replying, "Or salvation, Miss Price." Jonathan studied him, torn between suspicion and the lure of expertise. Isabella clung to her shawl, whispering, "His eyes remind me of a man who promised my father's safe return." The sea wind carried her words into silence. Inside the ship's cabin, maps and instruments cluttered the table. Victor leaned over, pointing to a chart. These waters conceal trenches no map dares mark. Jonathan replied, knowledge has a price. What's yours? Victor's eyes flickered with amusement. To see history restored, nothing more. Eleanor's glare was sharp as a blade. Men who claim nothing always hide everything. Victor laughed, the sound unsettling. Suspicion is healthy, Miss Price, though it blinds when overused. Isabella whispered. My father said men who laugh at warnings rarely live long. Jonathan slammed his palm against the table. Enough riddles. This voyage is not a stage for clever words. It is a path to truth. Silence fell, broken only by the creak of the ship as waves rocked it gently. Night cloaked the ship in darkness, lanterns flickering along the deck. Jonathan stood at the railing, sea spray chilling his skin. Eleanor joined him, her voice low. Victor is a snake, and you know it. Jonathan's reply was heavy. Snakes still know paths, others fear to tread. Eleanor clenched her jaw. And they bite when least expected. Jonathan sighed, gazing at the horizon. Every ally carries a risk, yet without risk, truth remains hidden. Eleanor touched his arm, whispering, obsession has blinded men before, Jonathan. Don't let it blind you now. He pulled away, his eyes haunted. Blind or not, I will see Atlantis. Behind them, Victor's shadow lingered, watching in silence. A sudden storm rose, waves lashing against the ship. Isabella clutched the mast, screaming. The ocean remembers. Jonathan fought to steady the crew, shouting, hold the ropes, don't let the storm take us. Eleanor gripped the railing, her knuckles white. This sea rejects us, Jonathan. It's a warning. Victor's voice cut through the chaos, oddly calm. Or it's the sea's way of testing resolve. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his smirk. Jonathan's face hardened, drenched by the rain. Resolve doesn't calm storms, he shouted back, but truth might. The ship groaned under the weight of waves, as if Atlantis itself resisted their approach. The storm eased by dawn, leaving the ship battered but afloat. Jonathan, soaked and exhausted, whispered, Atlantis is near. I felt it in the storm's fury. Eleanor shot him a glare. You felt madness, nothing more. Victor approached, his cloak tattered, yet his smile intact. Near or not, fate tested us, and we survived. Isabella sat shivering, her voice weak. Survival is not victory. My father survived storms, yet still vanished. Jonathan placed the fragment on the deck, its runes glowing faintly in the pale light. This is our compass, he said, conviction ringing in his voice. Eleanor shook her head, muttering, or it is the anchor that drags us under. The sea stretched endlessly, indifferent to their fragile hopes. The ship drifted into mist as jagged cliffs rose from the sea, their black stone glistening like teeth. Jonathan whispered, these are not natural. They're guardians of the drowned city. Eleanor's voice trembled with warning. Guardians or graves, they mark boundaries never crossed. Victor leaned on the railing, smiling with unsettling calm. Every forbidden place holds treasure worth the price. Isabella clutched her shawl tighter, her voice fragile. My father wrote of this place, he said. The cliffs watched him. Jonathan raised the glowing fragment, runes pulsing faintly in the fog. They watch, but they also guide. We are close. The sea roared against the rocks, as though echoing a warning older than time. They anchored near a cavern carved into the cliffs, waves crashing at its mouth. Jonathan said, the entrance lies here, hidden in shadow. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Shadow swallows fools whole. Victor chuckled. And yet, only fools stumble upon truth. Isabella whispered, my father's last letter spoke of a cavern that breathed like a living thing. Jonathan pressed forward, lantern in hand, determination etched in every line of his face. Eleanor grabbed his arm, pleading, do not enter blindly. He turned, his eyes cold fire. Blindness is refusing to see. I will not turn away. The cavern exhaled damp air, as though waiting for them. Inside the cavern, echoes of dripping water mingled with the hiss of the tide. Runes glowed faintly on the walls, reflecting off the fragment in Jonathan's hand. He said, "This place remembers." Eleanor's voice trembled. "Places that remember also curse those who enter." Victor stepped forward, brushing his hand across the wall. "Curse or not, it's magnificent." Isabella recoiled. "Don't touch it. My father said these symbols awaken storms." Jonathan glared at Victor, voice sharp. "This is not a relic for amusement, it's a map carved in stone." Victor's smile thinned, shadows dancing on his face. Eleanor whispered, "Maps lead to graves as easily as to cities." Their lanterns flickered, the cavern breathing in unison with the sea. Deeper in the cavern, they discovered a chamber where stone pillars jutted from black water. Jonathan whispered, "A gateway." Eleanor muttered, "Or a tomb waiting for fools." Victor stepped onto a narrow ledge, his voice smooth. "Do tombs glow with such promise?" Isabella pointed to carvings of cities burning. "My father drew these exact flames before he vanished." Jonathan studied the carvings, his voice grim. "Atlantis fell in fire and water. This chamber is its memory." Eleanor shuddered. "And memories consume the living when disturbed." Victor smirked. "Then let it consume, for only then will we hold truth." The water rippled as if stirred by unseen hands. The fragment pulsed brighter, casting eerie light across the chamber. Jonathan said, "This is the threshold. Atlantis waits beyond." Eleanor's voice cracked. "You will drown us in obsession." Victor laughed softly. "Drowning is just another path to rebirth." Isabella trembled, whispering, "My father stood here. He wrote that the stone opened the way." Jonathan raised the fragment toward the carvings, the chamber vibrating with deep resonance. Eleanor shouted, "Stop, Jonathan, you don't know what it awakens." He replied, voice steady but haunted, "Truth cannot remain buried forever." The carvings blazed with sudden firelight, illuminating faces filled with fear and awe. The chamber walls still pulsed with fiery light as silence fell heavy. Jonathan whispered, "We are standing at the edge of legend." Eleanor snapped, "No, Jonathan, you stand at the edge of ruin." Victor's voice slithered through the air, "And ruin always comes before rebirth." Isabella shivered, tears streaking her cheeks. "This is where my father was last seen. He trusted someone, and it destroyed him." Jonathan turned to her, firm but soft. "We will not let his fate be ours." Victor smirked faintly. "Fate cannot be chosen, only embraced." The flickering glow carved shadows on their faces, each hiding secrets they dared not voice. They climbed deeper into the cavern, the air thick with salt and ash. Jonathan led with the fragment, its glow guiding their steps. Eleanor said, "Every step we take binds us tighter to a grave." Jonathan replied, "Then let it be a grave of truth." Victor's chuckle echoed, unsettling. "Truth and death are twin brothers." Isabella stumbled, clutching Eleanor's arm, whispering, "It feels like the stone is calling us forward." Jonathan's eyes burned with obsession. "Because it is." Eleanor snapped back, "Or it is leading you to damnation." The tunnel narrowed, swallowing their voices like secrets meant to stay hidden. They entered a chamber with a stone altar etched in runes. Jonathan said, "This is a seal. Atlantis sleeps behind it." Victor stepped forward, his voice smooth. "Then let me open it." Eleanor blocked him, eyes blazing. "You've revealed too much. You knew this was here." Victor smirked. "And you thought me merely a passenger?" Jonathan's voice hardened. "What are you after?" Victor's reply was a whisper, sharp as a blade. "Not myths, power. Power men buried to keep themselves safe." Isabella gasped, clutching her chest. "You deceived us." Jonathan clenched his fists, betrayal cutting deeper than the cavern air. Victor's smile widened as he pulled a dagger from his coat, its blade etched with strange marks. "Your obsession delivered me here, Jonathan." Eleanor hissed, "You betrayed us all." Jonathan stepped forward, rage in his eyes. "You used us to find this place." Victor's tone was cruel. "And you would have wasted it chasing answers when power waited." Isabella trembled, whispering, "My father trusted men like you, and it killed him." Jonathan raised the fragment, its glow clashing with the dagger's cold sheen. "You will not claim this city," he vowed. Victor's laughter echoed like the cavern itself mocked them. Dr. Marcus Kane emerged from the shadows, his calm voice slicing through the chaos. "You were all pawns, and Atlantis is not yours to uncover." Jonathan's chest heaved. "You knew, and you let us walk into this trap." Kane's smile was cold. "Because only desperation uncovers truth." Eleanor whispered bitterly, "You both would bury the world in lies." Victor sneered, "Lies are just truths people fear." Isabella sobbed, clutching her shawl. "My father died because of men like you." Jonathan raised the fragment high, voice shaking with fury. "No one owns Atlantis, and I will not let either of you decide its fate." The chamber trembled, as if the city itself stirred at their clash. The altar split with a grinding roar, stone giving way to a hidden passage. Jonathan whispered, "Atlantis. It breathes beneath us." Eleanor's face was pale. "You've awakened something we cannot contain." Victor smirked, voice sharp. "Containment is weakness. Release is power." Isabella clutched her shawl, her voice trembling. "My father wrote that this door never closes once opened." Kane stepped forward, calm and commanding. "And that is why it should never have been touched." Jonathan raised the fragment, its glow blazing like fire. "It's too late. Atlantis calls us forward." The ground trembled as a rush of stale ocean-soaked air spilled out like the sigh of a sleeping giant. They stepped into a submerged chamber, walls lined with crystalline pillars. Bioluminescent light flickered, casting eerie reflections on the water. Jonathan breathed, "This is no myth. It's a city of the deep." Eleanor shook her head. "None. A graveyard masquerading as paradise." Victor's grin widened. "Then, let us plunder the grave." Isabella's voice broke. "I feel him here. My father's presence lingers in these halls." Kane's expression darkened. "Atlantis is not treasure, it is disease. It consumes those who claim it." Jonathan's eyes burned as he touched a glowing column. "And still, I must see it all." The chamber groaned as if alive, warning them they had trespassed too far. The passage widened into a drowned hall, murals etched with fire and floods covering its walls. Jonathan whispered, "Atlantis wrote its own epitaph." Eleanor traced the carvings, voice filled with dread. "This was no paradise. It was a catastrophe." Victor sneered. "And yet, catastrophe births opportunity." Isabella cried out softly, "These murals, they're identical to my father's last sketches." Kane's voice rang out. "Atlantis fell because of hubris. Do you not see you are repeating their doom?" Jonathan's voice hardened. "Hubris or not, the truth demands light." The carvings glowed brighter, as though listening to his words. They reached a chamber with a massive throne carved from black stone, encrusted with coral and gold. Jonathan's voice was reverent. "The seat of kings." Eleanor spat bitterly. "A throne built on ashes." Victor stepped closer, hunger in his eyes. "And now it waits for one worthy to claim it." Isabella fell to her knees whispering, "My father drew this throne. He never returned after." Kane's voice cut through, calm but venomous. "This is not a throne. It is a prison of memory." Jonathan placed the fragment on the steps, the runes pulsing in rhythm with the sea. "It is the heart of Atlantis, and it still beats." The throne chamber shook as the fragment pulsed violently, walls glowing with ancient power. Jonathan shouted, "Atlantis awakens!" Eleanor cried out, "You've doomed us all!" Victor's laughter echoed manic. "No, he's freed me to claim what was denied for centuries." Isabella screamed. "My father warned that Atlantis devours its seekers." Kane's calm voice rose above the chaos. "And now you will learn why it was meant to remain buried." Jonathan clutched the fragment, torn between awe and terror. "The truth is here, but it may kill us." The The throne glowed brighter, casting shadows of gods long forgotten. The chamber thundered as the throne's glow intensified, shaking stone and sea alike. Jonathan shouted, "Atlantis rises." Eleanor cried, "It will bury us alive." Victor raised his dagger, voice filled with madness. "I claim the throne and its eternal power." Isabella clutched Jonathan's arm, trembling. "My father died here, don't let his fate be ours." Cain's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. "The city devours ambition. Step away before it takes you all." Jonathan lifted the fragment higher, torn between his obsession and the weight of their lives. "Truth demands sacrifice," he whispered, as the throne pulsed like a beating heart. Victor lunged toward the throne, dagger raised, but Jonathan blocked him, their clash echoing like thunder. Victor snarled, "You seek truth, I seek dominion. They are one and the same." Jonathan roared, "Truth is not power, it is burden." Eleanor pulled Isabella back, her voice breaking. "Stop this madness before the sea swallows us." Cain's expression darkened. "Atlantis fell because of men like you both." Victor pressed his blade close, his eyes burning. "Then let me fall as king." Jonathan shoved him away, the fragment blazing between them like fire made flesh. The runes on the walls ignited, and the sea burst through cracks in the chamber. Isabella screamed, "The ocean is reclaiming the city." Eleanor shouted, "We have to leave now." Cain stepped forward, his voice solemn. "Atlantis will bury intruders, as it buried itself." Jonathan turned, eyes full of fire. "I cannot abandon the truth now, not when it's in my grasp." Eleanor grabbed him, tears streaming. "Jonathan, truth without life is nothing." Victor, soaked and wild, screamed, "The throne is mine," as he leapt again. The chamber shuddered, water surging higher, the city collapsing around them. Victor reached the throne, pressing his dagger into its surface, but a surge of energy flung him back, his scream drowned in roaring water. Jonathan staggered, clutching the fragment as it burned in his hands. Cain's voice thundered, "Atlantis rejects those who claim dominion." Eleanor cried, "Jonathan, let it go before it kills you." Isabella sobbed, "Please, don't join my father in the deep." Jonathan's breath came ragged, torn between obsession and salvation. "If I let go, Atlantis dies with me. If I hold on, the truth lives." The fragment's light seared brighter than the sun, forcing them all to shield their eyes. The throne chamber collapsed, swallowed by the sea. Jonathan, Eleanor, and Isabella struggled onto the shattered deck of their ship as waves consumed the cliffs. Jonathan whispered, voice hollow, "Atlantis lives only in memory now." Eleanor stared at him, her eyes filled with grief. "And in scars you will carry forever." Isabella clutched the fragment, now dull and lifeless, tears streaming. "My father's truth rests with yours." Cain's voice echoed faintly from the ruins, lost in the roar of the ocean. Jonathan stared at the horizon, broken yet resolute. The truth was never paradise. It was warning. The storm eased, leaving silence heavier than the sea.